The Petit family was often regarded as an exemplary household, embodying the ideals of a successful family with a solid economic foundation and commendable children. They garnered genuine admiration from their community.
William Petit, the father, was born and raised in Connecticut, where he excelled in various sports during his high school years, particularly in basketball, where he demonstrated natural leadership qualities. In addition to his athletic achievements, he distinguished himself academically, earning a law degree from Dartmouth University. However, his true passion lay not in law but in medicine, as he aspired to assist those in need and improve the lives of others. Consequently, after completing his education, he chose to pursue a medical career at the University of Pittsburgh. During his third year of residency at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, William met Jennifer Hawk, a nurse specializing in oncology and co-director of a health center for pre-graduate interns. Their connection blossomed into love, and those who knew them believed they were perfectly matched. They married in 1985, and 4 years later, they welcomed their first daughter, Haley, which inspired them to expand their family and purchase a home in Cheshire, Connecticut.
On November 17, 1995, their second daughter, Michaela, was born.
Following her recovery from childbirth, Jennifer resumed her role as a nurse and co-director of the internship program. Tragically, she later developed multiple sclerosis, a chronic illness she would contend with for the remainder of her life. Nevertheless, her family remained steadfast in their support.
At the age of 10, their eldest daughter began fundraising for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, successfully raising substantial funds for the cause. Michaela demonstrated exceptional academic performance throughout her years and intended to assume responsibility for the fundraising initiatives once her sister entered college, thereby continuing her commitment to her community. During the summer, she dedicated time to learning culinary skills and frequently took pleasure in preparing meals for her family. Unfortunately, this seemingly ordinary activity would lead the family to a tragic encounter with their assailant.
One evening in July 2007, while Michaela was in the process of preparing dinner, she realized she required additional ingredients for her dish. Consequently, she and her mother visited the nearest market, where they crossed paths with Joshua Kamas, who had recently been released from prison. Joshua's childhood was marked by trauma and complexity. Born to teenage parents, he was placed for adoption shortly after birth by his mother and subsequently adopted by the Kamar JVY family, renowned for their artistic legacy in Europe. This family, known for their strict religious values, imposed a rigid upbringing on him. Despite possessing a high IQ, Joshua faced challenges in his academic pursuits, which led his parents to homeschool him. During his trial, he alleged that he had been sexually abused by a cousin during his childhood, a matter his family chose to suppress. This silence contributed to the development of a rebellious and tumultuous personality. By the age of 14, Joshua had been accused of abusing his sister, and it was around this period that he committed his first burglary, marking the beginning of his criminal activities. In 2002, he was arrested for the first time on 18 counts of burglary and theft, resulting in a 9-year prison sentence. During the trial, he made a disturbing remark, stating, "I like to listen to people while they sleep. I enjoy the sensation of invading their privacy." In 2007, at the age of 27, he was released on parole, despite officials deeming him a potential threat to society due to his calculated criminal behavior and deviant tendencies. Nevertheless, the jury disregarded these concerns and deemed Joshua fit for release. Following his release, he resided in a halfway house for former inmates, where he encountered his accomplice, Stephen Hayes. Hayes had a long history of incarceration, having been first imprisoned at the age of 16 in 1980. Over the years, he faced numerous arrests for violent crimes, including robbery and burglary. He was sentenced in 2004 and granted parole in 2006, which led him to the same halfway house where he met Joshua. On the evening of July 22, 2007, Michaela Petit was preparing dinner for her family when she realized she needed additional ingredients. She requested her mother to accompany her to the nearest market. Unbeknownst to them, they were being watched by Joshua, who carefully observed every detail, including the make and model of their vehicle, their appearances, and Michaela's blonde hair. After their shopping trip, the Petit family returned home, still unaware that they were being followed. Shortly thereafter, Hayes sent a text to Joshua stating his eagerness to begin their plans, followed by a request for a margarita. Joshua confirmed their intentions, and Hayes inquired about the timing,
to which Joshua replied that he was putting a child to bed. Hayes responded with impatience, indicating a desire to proceed. Meanwhile, Joshua discreetly trailed the family in his vehicle, noting their exact location. The family enjoyed what appeared to be a tranquil and ordinary dinner in their home, blissfully unaware that it would be their final moments together. In the early hours of the morning, while everyone was asleep except for the father, William Petit, who had dozed off in the living room, their tranquility was abruptly disrupted by unusual noises emanating from within the house. The next thing William recalled was a feeling of grogginess, pain, and an inability to think clearly. Intruders, identified as AR, J, and Hayes, had gained entry through an unlocked door with the initial intention of robbing the family. However, the night took a devastating turn when they discovered a baseball bat inside the house and used it to assault William repeatedly. Despite the brutal attack, he remained conscious and overheard one of the intruders instructing, "If he moves, shoot him." William was subsequently restrained with zip ties and ropes, immobilized and secured to a pole in the basement. The intruders then proceeded upstairs to locate Haley's room, where she was asleep. Both Haley and Michaela Petit were bound by their hands and feet to their bedposts, their heads shrouded in pillowcases. Meanwhile, in the master bedroom, Jennifer Petit had fallen asleep. The intruders quietly entered her room and roused her with little effort, binding her hands and feet, feeling a sense of dominance over the household. They took their time to search the premises, even smoking cigarettes in the living room. After gathering jewelry, cash, and other valuables, they prepared to leave, leading the Petit family to believe that their ordeal had come to an end. However, the nightmare was far from over, as the intruders planned to sell the stolen items. At a pawn shop, the ex-convicts, driven by greed and realizing they had not received the expected amount of money, made the decision to return to their previous residence. There, they discovered a check register containing $40,000 and resolved to steal $155,000. Prior to their return, they also filled several gasoline cans, as captured by surveillance footage. Upon arriving back at the house, they informed Jennifer of their plan, threatening to kill her entire family if she did not comply. In a state of desperation, but prioritizing her daughter's safety, Jennifer consented to accompany Stephen to the bank the following morning. Meanwhile, Joshua exploited Jennifer's absence by entering Michaela's room, where he untied her and began to undress her. He took photographs with his cell phone and assaulted her, recording the act. Afterward, he took her to the bathroom to clean up, ensuring that no DNA evidence remained, and then ordered her to put her pajamas back on before restraining her again. Evidence of the assault on Michaela was later confirmed during her autopsy, where state medical examiner Dr. Wayne Carver identified the perpetrator's DNA in her body. At the bank, everything appeared to be proceeding smoothly. However, Stephen overlooked Jennifer's actions while they were in line. Before approaching the teller, she discreetly wrote a note on a flyer seeking assistance. The note read, "My name is Jennifer Hawk Petit. I need to withdraw $115,000 from my savings account. My family is in danger. Please call the police or they will be killed." The teller, despite Jennifer lacking identification, decided to provide her with the requested funds. With the cash in hand, Jennifer exited the bank to return to the car with her captor. An employee promptly contacted the police to report the incident. The manager informed the 911 dispatcher that Hawk Petit had mentioned the home invaders were behaving amicably and that she believed their intentions were solely financial. The Cheshire police responded to the bank's alert by evaluating the situation and establishing a vehicle perimeter while maintaining a low profile. Aware of the circumstances, the police observed from a distance without taking immediate action. Meanwhile, inside the house, Joshua disclosed to his accomplice his actions towards Michaela, implying he could do the same to Jennifer without any reluctance. Stephen restrained Jennifer, forcing her to the ground and beginning to undress her. William, hearing the assault on his wife from upstairs, shouted out and overheard one of the intruders assure her that it would all be over shortly. As William Petit regained consciousness and heard his wife's cries, he managed to free himself and crawl towards the basement stairs, eventually reaching the backyard. He later recounted that he felt it was a critical moment, believing they might all be shot imminently. Joshua went to check on William, only to discover that he had escaped. Hayes, in her confession, stated that while Stephen was assaulting Hawk Petit on the living room floor, Comer JSKY entered and announced William's escape.
Upon hearing this, Stephen strangled Jennifer to death while continuing his assault. Shortly thereafter, they heard William calling for help, prompting a neighbor, who initially did not recognize him due to his injuries, to call 911, quickly realizing the urgency of the situation. The individuals, soon to be referred to as the intruders, made the decision to eradicate all traces of their crime. They doused Jennifer's lifeless body in various parts of the residence, including the bedrooms of the daughters, with gasoline. Investigators would later discover the accelerant on the beds of the Petit sisters and on the clothing they were wearing. The perpetrators ignited a fire and attempted to flee the scene, oblivious to the fact that law enforcement had cordoned off the area a few miles away. They subsequently collided with a police vehicle, and within 5 minutes, they found themselves surrounded by law enforcement. The two suspects were extracted from their vehicle and taken into custody, where they were promptly identified as former convicts. Meanwhile, the fire within the house was escalating rapidly. An ambulance arrived to transport the severely injured father, Dr. William Petit, to the nearest hospital. Shortly thereafter, firefighters began their efforts to extinguish the blaze and, upon doing so, uncovered a gruesome scene within the charred remains of the home. The first body discovered was that of Jennifer, completely charred with remnants of rope binding her ankles. Upon reaching the second floor, they found Michaela tied to her bed, entirely consumed by the flames. In a surprising turn, Haley had managed to break free from her restraints and attempted to escape but collapsed just a few meters away after inhaling excessive smoke. William had managed to free himself from his bindings, exit the house, and crawl to a neighbor's yard for assistance. The neighbor initially failed to recognize him due to the extent of his injuries. Both Hayes and Harvey confessed to the murders, with detectives noting that Hayes reeked of gasoline throughout her interrogation. Salant asserted that the other individual was the primary instigator and mastermind behind the home invasion. Kamerjevi also accused William of being responsible for the murders in Kamerjevi's diary, which was subsequently submitted as evidence. In the diary, he referred to William as a coward and contended that he could have saved his family if he had chosen to do so. The trial of Stephen Hayes commenced on September 13, 2010, with a jury composed of 7 women and 5 men. The defense maintained that Joshua Zarvi was the true mastermind behind the crime and was accountable for its violent escalation, while the prosecution argued that both Hayes and Zarvi bore responsibility. On October 5, after approximately 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Hayes guilty. The sentencing phase began on October 18, during which the jury was initially divided on whether to recommend life imprisonment or the death penalty. Hayes' defense contended that life imprisonment without the possibility of parole would constitute a more severe punishment. On November 8, the jury ultimately recommended the death penalty for Hayes on all 6 counts of capital felony. Hayes had previously sought to negotiate a plea deal for a life sentence, but the prosecutors pursued the death penalty. Dr. William Petit, the sole survivor, commented on the verdict, and the Connecticut State Judicial Branch provided post-traumatic stress assistance to jurors due to the trial's distressing nature. This marked the first instance in state history where such assistance was offered to jurors who served for 2 months on a triple murder trial, as they were required to view disturbing images and hear gruesome testimonies. On December 2, 2010, Hayes expressed remorse for the pain and suffering he caused. The actions of the Petit family were profoundly affected, and I expressed that my death would be a welcome relief, hoping it would provide some peace and comfort to those I have harmed deeply. Judge John Blue imposed 6 death sentences along with an additional 106 years for other offenses. However, Hayes' death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment in August 2015 following the abolition of capital punishment in Connecticut. Joshua Kamas, also known as J.V., faced trial beginning on September 19, 2011. His defense team proposed a guilty plea in exchange for a life sentence, but prosecutors sought the death penalty, contending that Kamas was a confused individual influenced by Hayes. Kamas was found guilty on October 13, 2011, and the jury recommended the death penalty on December 9, 2011. During his sentencing, Kamas expressed his shame and the pain caused by his actions, asserting that he never intended to take a life. Judge Blue set July 20, 2012, as Kamas' execution date, acknowledging his accountability for the crime.
However, similar to Hayes, Kama's death sentence was also converted to life imprisonment in August 2015 after the abolition of the death penalty in Connecticut. The trials and subsequent sentences of Hayes and Kamas represented a significant and distressing chapter in Connecticut's legal history. The heinous nature of the crimes and the emotional burden on all parties involved, including the jurors, underscored the complexities and challenges faced by the legal system in addressing such egregious acts. Dr. Petit's statements during the trials highlighted the enduring impact of the crime on surviving family members and the community, which continues to honor the memory of the victims. Dr. William Petit, the sole survivor of the tragic incident, was discharged from the hospital 4 days following his admission in order to attend the funeral of his family. Burdened by guilt and the anguish of having survived, he later founded an organization dedicated to assisting children and young victims of violence, successfully raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. Subsequently, as a member of the Republican Party, he entered the political arena and became a state representative. The murders of the Petit family profoundly affected the community, which gathers annually to honor their memory. Questions persist among family members and the public regarding the appropriateness of the authorities' response to the situation. The time spent by law enforcement observing the events from a distance may have been critical in averting the tragedy. This concludes today's case update, and I sincerely appreciate your continued support for my work.